The dropship rocked as it punched through Karzan's atmosphere, turbulence rattling through the hull like distant artillery fire. Inside, the dim red cabin lights cast jagged shadows over 4 figures strapped into crash seats. Sweat, oil, and the faint sting of burnt ozone filled the air. How much time? Commander Elias Voss kept his voice even, but his grip tightened on the safety bar overhead. Dr. Nia Patel didn't look up from her forearm display. 3 minutes until the next patrol sweep. We land hot. Could have guessed that from the shaking, Jonas Jazz Calloway muttered, checking the charge on his pulse carbine. The stock was wrapped in faded cloth, blood-stained, but whose no one knew. Milo Beckett exhaled slowly, eyes half-lidded like a man meditating before execution. Feels wrong. The air, the ground, like the whole planet is waiting for something. Voss eyed him. You getting one of your feelings? Yeah. Milo's fingers drummed against his knee. One of the bad ones. The dropship lurched. The comms crackled. 1 minute to drop, came the pilot's clipped voice. Voss unclipped his harness and stood, planting his boots against the floor with practiced stability. We all know the plan. No reinforcements, no exfil if this goes sideways. We get in, we kill the node, we get out. And if we don't? Jazz grinned like a man who already knew the answer. Then we make sure they remember why they banned us in the first place. The ramp slammed open. Hell came rushing in. Outside, Karzan stretched in ruins, a blackened corpse of a city bathed in eerie violet light from the shattered moons above. The wind howled, carrying the scent of scorched metal and something deeper, something rotting beneath the rubble. Voss dropped first, boots crunching against fractured stone. The others followed, weapons raised, eyes scanning. Above, a Cathari patrol drone skimmed the rooftops, sleek and silent, its dark carapace blending with the night. A moment later, it was gone. Clock's ticking, Nia murmured. Jazz crouched, studying the cracked ground. Pressure mines, subsurface. These bastards don't play fair. Neither do we. Voss turned to Nia. Options. She flexed her fingers. EMP pulse should clear a path, but it'll leave us dark for 15 seconds. Not ideal, Milo muttered. Welcome to the job, Jazz said. Voss nodded. Do it. Nia activated the disruptor. A ripple pulsed outward, unseen but felt. A brief static hum that made the hairs on their arms rise. The ground flickered as buried mines shorted out, some erupting in harmless sparks. Go. They moved fast, silent streaks of shadow against the ruins. Every footstep calculated, every breath measured. Then the first scream split the night. Not human. Something else. Something dying. Milo froze, turning his head slightly. That's not patrol chatter. That's... Body tumbled from a rooftop, hitting the ground in a wet spatter. Cathari. Chest torn open, blood steaming against the cold stone. Jazz stared. That wasn't us. A second body fell, then a third. Voss motioned them into cover, pressing against the jagged remains of a collapsed wall. He spoke low. New factor in play. Nia's hands tightened on her disruptor. The Senate never mentioned another force. Because they didn't know. Voss's jaw clenched. The wind shifted. It wasn't just the scent of charred metal anymore. Something deeper had seeped into the air, thick and raw. The iron tang of blood. Not fresh, not old. Something in between. Voss didn't stop moving. Neither did the others. Training beat instinct into silence. See the danger. Process it. Keep moving. But Milo hesitated. Just a flicker. Just long enough. Eyes up, Beckett, Jazz muttered. Milo's grip tightened on his rifle. Something's wrong. No shit, Jazz said, but not unkindly. Ahead, the shattered city stretched like a corpse left too long in the sun. Buildings slumped, melted from orbital fire. Streets split open, the ground still warm beneath their boots. The Cathari did this, and now they were dying here. The first body wasn't a surprise. A Cathari warrior, sprawled against a collapsed wall, exoskeletal plates shattered, acid green blood drying in thick rivulets, clawed hands curled inward, a face frozen in something between rage and confusion. The second body was worse, human. Voss saw it first. His boots skidded to a halt, and the others nearly stumbled into him. It was sprawled across the rubble, back arched unnaturally, one arm reaching. For what? A weapon? A comrade? A way out? Didn't matter now. The armor was unfamiliar, scorched but intact, the plating dull and unmarked. No insignia, no tags. Whoever they were, they didn't want to be found, and yet here they were. Naya crouched beside the body. Her fingers hovered over the armor, hesitated, then pressed against the plating. Still warm, Jazz swore under his breath. This was supposed to be a one-team op. Voss's gut twisted. The Senate's ruling had been absolute. No human shall take part in war. And yet... "Someone beat us here," Milo said. His voice was too steady. No one argued. Voss scanned the horizon. Too many bodies, not enough weapons. Whoever these people were, they hadn't been taken out in a fight. This was something else. Naya stood. "Commander." Voss turned. She held up a chunk of armor plating. No insignia, no markings, but scratched into the metal, just deep enough to catch the light, were 3 words, not Cathari. The silence stretched. Jazz exhaled, adjusting his grip on his carbine. "Okay, I don't like that." "Join the club," Voss muttered. He turned away from the body. "We move. Now." The target was 5 blocks ahead. The city swallowed them as they moved. Shadows stretched long across the ruins, broken only by the eerie violet glow from the shattered moons above. Karzan had never been a beautiful world, but now it was something else entirely. Dead. Waiting. The patrols should have been tighter. The Catharis should have been on high alert. Instead, silence. Even their comms were dead. Blank static where there should have been encrypted chatter. Jazz flexed his fingers. "Feels like we're walking into a goddamn graveyard." Milo's head tilted, eyes narrowing. "Feels like the graveyard's watching back." Then the first body fell. Not Cathari. Not human. Something else. It hit the ground with a wet crunch. For half a second no one moved. The thing twitched. A final, feeble jerk of limbs that had been something like arms, something like legs. Voss's rifle was up before his brain caught up. The others followed. Milo stared. "That's..." The body shifted, or rather something dragged it. Slowly, deliberately, into the dark. For a moment Voss thought it was a trick of the firelight. Then he saw it. A ripple in the air. Not movement, not a shape. Just wrong. Like heat distortion. Like a mirage. It flickered against the ruins. Too smooth. That's too fast. Vanishing between the collapsed buildings. Then came the voice. Not one voice. Many. "You do not belong." A layered sound. Garbled. Warped. Wrong. The words crawled down Voss's spine. Nia's hands were steady on her disruptor, but her voice wasn't. "That's not Cathari." Jazz inhaled sharply. "Well, no shit, Doc." Milo's breathing was too slow. Too measured. "It's watching." Voss spoke, even and calm. "Where?" Milo didn't blink. "Everywhere." Then the thing laughed. A broken, rasping sound. A dozen voices stitched into something almost human. The shimmer moved. Fast. Too fast. And then everything went dark. Darkness swallowed them whole. No warning. No slow fade. Just gone. 1 second the ruined city stretched before them, its bones bathed in cold violet moonlight. The next, reality blinked, and the world was nothing but a void. Even their HUDs flickered out. No thermal signatures, no motion tracking, no light. Dead silence. Voss dropped to a knee, rifle up. "Don't panic. Process. Adapt." "Check in," he snapped. "Still here." Jazz's voice cut through the dark, but it was wrong. Muffled. Warped, as if coming through a tunnel. "Systems are..." Nia started, then cursed under her breath. Shit. Not just dark. It's interference. EMP level. Whatever this is, it's messing with our augments. Milo didn't answer. Then click. Not a mechanical sound. Not natural either. Like teeth against metal. Jazz exhaled sharply. Okay, that was close. Voss moved purely on instinct, reaching for his wrist display, blind, relying on muscle memory. He pressed the override, forcing his HUD into manual night vision. It flickered, static, grayscale distortions. Then he saw it, standing inches away. Voss fired. Light exploded. The muzzle flash ripped through the void, casting shadows that shouldn't have been there. The thing moved before the round hit. Not dodging, flowing. Its form bent, like smoke forced into the shape of a living thing. Then it laughed, not in pain, not in fear. Amusement. Voss didn't hesitate. Weapons live. Jazz was already moving, his carbine barking short, controlled bursts into the darkness. I don't know what that is, but I don't like it. Nia flicked a switch on her gauntlet, her disruptor humming to life. We need to see what we're dealing with. Voss grabbed her by the arm, yanking her toward cover. No time for analysis, Doc. Milo still wasn't moving. Too still. Then he whispered, voice eerie in the pitch black, It's not alone. The city came alive. Shapes moved. Ripples in the air. More than one. More than 10. Their footsteps weren't loud, but they weren't silent either. Deliberate. A sound that pressed against the mind like a slow-building migraine. Jazz pivoted, firing again. The rounds sparked against the stone. Empty space where something had just been. They're playing with us, Nia whispered. Voss gritted his teeth. Then let's change the rules. He reached for his belt. EMP, now. They already hit us with one, Nia argued. Not for us. Realization flashed across her face. She yanked the disruptor from her belt, twisting the dial past safety limits. Hope they run on circuits. She triggered the pulse. A shockwave rippled outward. A flash of white. A deep hum. A crackle through the air. For a single second the shadows became visible. And that was worse. They weren't Cathari. They weren't anything. Tall, elongated, their limbs too many, their joints wrong. They didn't walk so much as glide, as if they weren't fully in this reality. Their forms flickered, shifting in and out of focus like a badly tuned transmission, like they were being viewed through the wrong spectrum of existence. But their faces, no. They didn't have faces, just the faint impression of them, as if something had tried to sculpt a humanoid shape and forgot what a person was supposed to look like. Milo gasped. A real, gut-deep human sound of fear. Jazz just fired. This time the rounds hit, and the creatures jerked back, not from pain, from surprise. Voss took the chance. Move! They didn't argue. They ran. The ruins blurred past them, violet light flickering back to life as the anomaly that had swallowed them began to unravel. But the things, they followed. No more games. No more laughter. Just hunting. Naya's disruptor flickered, overloaded. Can't EMP again? Then we outrun them, Voss snapped. Milo shook his head. You don't outrun something like that. He skidded to a stop. Voss turned. Beckett, what the hell are you? Milo's voice was calm, too calm. Go. I'll give you time. Jazz grabbed his shoulder. Number no goddamn martyrs shit. Milo just smiled. I know what they are. Silence. Voss met his eyes. Then tell us. Milo exhaled. Slow. They're not here to win. His gaze flicked back to the ruins. The Cathari corpses. The human dead. The way they were arranged. They're here to learn. Nia paled. They're studying us? Jazz swore. Oh, that's worse. That's so much worse. Voss's grip tightened on his rifle. Think. Process. Adapt. You wanted to give us time? Voss's voice was low. Dangerous. Then tell us how to stop them. Milo hesitated. Then something screamed. Not a voice. Not a creature. Something bigger. The city itself. The ground shuddered. The ruins groaned, shifting, collapsing inward, as if the entire battlefield was resetting. And the things, they stopped. stood there, watching, waiting. Then all at once, they turned away. Voss's blood ran cold. They're leaving? Milo's voice was distant. They don't need to stay. They've already seen enough, Naya swallowed. Enough for what? Milo stared at the retreating figures. To do it better next time. Then the comm snapped back on. Static. Distorted voices. A single transmission breaking through. Fleet command to ground team, acknowledge. What the hell just happened down there? Voss raised his comm. His voice was steady. We need immediate evac. A beat. And we need to talk. Now. The Cathari were dead. The enemy had left. But the war wasn't over. Voss felt it in his bones. In the air. Thick with the scent of ozone and charred stone. In the weight of his pulse hammering in his ears. In the way the ruins still breathed. Shifting subtly as if the battlefield itself was unfinished. Because it wasn't. The enemy hadn't fled. They had simply left on their terms. Because they had what they wanted. Because they had learned. Voss turned slowly, scanning the remains of the battlefield. The bodies, the destruction, the patterns. This wasn't just a graveyard. It was a lesson plan. And next time, they wouldn't just mimic. They'd improve. Something deep inside him went cold. Number no next time. No better version. No do-over. Voss switched to fleet-wide. His voice was flat. Command, confirm fleet status. The comm sputtered, then stabilized. This is Fleet Command. We've been tracking extreme distortions around your position. Some kind of non-Euclidean interference. We lost you for exactly 8 minutes. 8? His jaw tightened. He turned to Milo. That's how long they needed, isn't it? Milo exhaled slowly. It's how long they took. A calculated number. A perfect measure. That confirmed it. Jazz spat onto the broken ground. I hate that. I hate everything about that. Nia's hands trembled as she ran another scan. They weren't fighting us, Voss. They were testing us. And now they know how we work, Milo murmured. Silence. Voss clenched his fists. Not for long. He switched back to Fleet Command. Mission parameters changed. We are initiating terminal protocol. A pause. Then a slow, careful response. Negative, Captain. You do not have clearance for... Override, Voss Aurelius 129. Silence. Then, acknowledged. The package is live. You have full control. Jazz stiffened. What the hell does that mean? Voss looked up. It means we erase the board. He raised his hand to his HUD, linked into the orbital command network, and gave the final order. Burn it all. Far above, the sky ignited. The first lances of fire fell like judgment, splitting the heavens open in ribbons of light. Then the real bombardment began. Mass drivers, orbital lances, hellfire payloads. The ground quaked as shockwaves rolled through the ruins, reducing ancient Cathari strongholds to nothing but ash. It wasn't just destruction, it was erasure. Every trace of this battlefield, gone. Every inch of ground the enemy had studied, rewritten in fire. Nia's face was pale, horror creeping into her expression. We just proved we're as dangerous as they think we are. Voss didn't blink. Good. Jazz shook his head, disbelief laced in his voice. Voss, we don't even know what they are. We don't need to. Voss turned his back to the flames. We just need to make sure they don't come back. Milo let out a slow, measured breath. They're going to ban us for this. Let them. And that's why humanity was banned. Not because we were monsters, not because we were mindless killers, but because the galaxy was playing chess, and we had just flipped the board. They studied us? They wanted to learn? Fine. Lesson learned. You don't test humanity twice, because the second time, you don't get to leave, not even as a memory.